All right. I think Dr. Lamb is in here because he just started recording.
I did. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Donald.
Great day. We got a lot of folks with us today. Welcome, everybody. Donald, who have you brought with you today?
So we have a host of people who are literally, in the village, and they have been with me from birth all the way to literally new employment this Monday.
What's going on this Monday?
So I now have a new position, interesting enough, in the area that I love to research, out of school programs at the Boys and Girls Club of America as the Teen Zone Director.
Well,
And so
congratulations.
our executive director, CEO, president, Carmen Turner, she is on here as well. And so it was a very happy transition for me to move into this work.
Well, wonderful. That's good news. Where are you going to be based out of?
Lansing, Michigan, which is going to be home for a nice little while.
Good. Good. That's great. Congratulations. All right. Who's your project host that's with us today?
Let's see here. Leroy Ray, Dr. Ray, who is a GW alum, North Carolina Central alum, and we have known each other since kindergarten.
Good morning. How y'all doing this morning?
Good morning. Good morning, Dr. Ray. Thank you for being with us. We appreciate your time, and we appreciate everybody else being with us today. Donald, I got your slideshow. If you want to go ahead and share your screen, we'll get started this morning. Again, welcome everyone. This is the final defense for Donald Barringer, investigating an out-of-school program, staff literacy, professional development. Donald, the floor is yours. You're muted. You're going to need to unmute yourself. There you go.
All right, I believe you all should hear me now.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome sauce. So investigating in out-of-school programs, staff literacy, professional development, of course, by Donald Anthony Barringer Jr. Today, November 17th, 2021, working with the Prodigal Son Foundation, Building Communities for Success, and of course, the Gardner-Webb School of Education. Feel free, if you like, to join along with me by viewing early the presentation, and the link will be provided for a little while. So a little story background about myself and how I ended up coming into this topic. 21st Century Communities Learning Centers is something that I've been a part of literally since college. However, I started working at out of school programs in high school at the Double Oaks Community Center, which was literally less than a mile from where I grew up as a kid. I became a teacher and a teacher educator who studied language and literacy at a few institutions: North Carolina Central University, Michigan State University, and Gardner-Webb University. You'll see me to the right reading to some kids with a nonprofit that I worked with early on called Read Seed in Durham, North Carolina. I also ended up working with a specific out-of-school program whose executive director is actually on the call, Building Child and Family Initiatives in Lansing, Michigan, working with non-educators who were teaching literacy to kids through a really amazing program. So we had to do this DEOL project, and I knew my friend had a nonprofit, and nonprofits always need help and support. And so I aligned myself with Dr. Leroy Ray, who is the president and founder of the Prodigal Son Foundation. Now, mind you, Leroy and I have known each other for a lifetime, but when we talked about this work, he literally aligned to what I was hoping that he would say. So when we think about this work that I'm talking about, in the academic world, we have theoretical frameworks, and these help us to think about our thinking and what we're doing. And so systems thinking is the framework that I'm using, which actually looks at a whole entire organization. It also looks at the patterns and things that they are doing throughout their existence, interconnectedness, how everything they do works together, and what makes them unique. The wonderful thing about Prodigal Son Foundation is that it is rooted in the community, is for the community, and it literally benefits not just the kids that they work with in the 21st Century program, but the community as a whole. And so within this graphic or diagram, you will see that the system is the out of school program. The inputs will be the staff professional development that I will talk about. The transformational process will actually be what we call in the education world, progress monitoring, looking at things over time, observation and reflection. And the outputs are students and families, which are also considered the stakeholders. You will see at the bottom, there's a feedback where there's a consultant. Oh, that's me. And then we have students and families who provide feedback along the way so that the system can know if they're actually achieving the goals that they want to achieve. So the purpose of this project was initially to look at family engagement, board development, and evaluating literacy practices. These all stem from a conversation at a business in Charlotte, North Carolina, over a few wonderful spirits to get in the spirit of really realizing how we could work together to make his organization better. However, as we go throughout our program, Dr. Lamb said, that's a little too large. And so we adapted that goal to develop just a strategic plan for Prodigal Son Foundation related to literacy programs, staff professional development, observation, and reflection. And on the flow chart on the right-hand side, you will see that I work directly with the president and founder for this project. When we think about the work that we do, a lot of times in education, especially in the academy, as we call it, we situate our work with other people's research or other people's publishings and things that they've shared with the greater community to help them learn. The 21st Century Community Learning Centers, something that I have been a part of since college, literally the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction strengthened the guidelines for this work within North Carolina to have a stronger focus on literacy. High quality after school programs, something that people have studied, not for a long time, but we realize that between 3 and 8 p.m., the kids who need us most usually are not in after school programs. And if we create a program that exists that allows great professional development, great opportunities for enrichment, and activities that get kids interested, we know that we can have these high quality programs. Comprehensive literacy best practices and specific literacy instructional practices. So along my journey, I've had the opportunity to meet some really amazing people, and some of their work has influenced me from the first time I read their book to the first conversation I had. And so Dr. Patricia Edwards, who studies families and literacy, but also equity within literacy, has informed the work in how I work with my teachers and also how I work with parents and kids specifically related to literacy. In addition to that, the National Reading Panel came out with recommendations about what we call the Big Five. And those allow us to think about phonics, whole language, and some other balanced literacy is what we actually call it. Wright and Newman actually shared with us the importance of early childhood education, but really focusing on vocabulary. And so even within my own personal life, when I give gifts, I usually give books. My great niece has a birthday coming up. She wants a cat. And guess what she's going to receive? Books about cats, because I already know she's interested in it. And we're going to combine all of that together with Morrow and Gambrill, where they actually literally gave us 10 things that we can do with kids that will help push the needle. And I say eliminate this achievement gap. When we think about out-of-school program staff, you may have had kids that have been into an out-of-school program. And we say out of school because after school, weekend, summer programs are all considered out of school time. But we actually think about developing the staff. And Linda Darling Hammond, who is, I think, an icon, she has shared with us ways in which we can develop people, human beings, in a way that honors who they are. It allows their voice to be in, it allows them to reflect, and it also gives us the opportunity to think differently about the people who didn't grow up to be teachers, who don't want to be teachers, but they're working with kids and they need some help. That's what Capella and Wayne tell us. And so organizational culture and change. This was one of my aha moments within my program because we did this thing called the Denison the Culture Survey. And that literally is the heart of any organization that wants to move. And even in my current position, our organization was a learning organization and they were open to change, which is why I slid right on in when the opportunity arose. Now, with related to this project, when we look at the scope and everything that we're doing, research and data is the heart of what we do. And research means that we're literally looking at information, and also too, we're going to think about what it is that we're looking at and how it will apply. My goal was to develop a professional development sequence that the PSF could actually use with or without me being there, because as they teach us in our program, consultants help fix problems. We don't actually do the problem fixing. And so, or we give the recommendations. Then enhancing staff literacy, engagement, and reflection. As an educator, reflection is key. And that's been something within my career that I still remember from school teaching, reflecting every day on the work that I'm actually doing
You ready to
so
go?
that I can go back
You ready
and
to go
look
to the
at that.
doctor?
So when we move into the approach
Donald,
and how
hold
we
one
do
second. Let me mute everybody and you can unmute yourself.
Yes.
Okay, you're back.
Awesome. Thank you so very much. And so when we think about the approach that we're using for this work, we look from a project management process, which has 5 different phases. The initiating phase. You recall earlier that Dr. Ray and I, we met to talk about his program, and I'll talk a little bit more about what came about during that process. Planning. So now it's on me to make sure that I take what he said and insert what I know to help them move towards their goal. Executing. As you know, something sort of happened in this world that requires us to wear masks for the past 18 to 20 months. And who knows how long we're going to be in masks. And so the executing really became a partnership between Dr. Ray and I communicating about different aspects of this program, but also ways that we can enhance PSF. Monitoring and control. This is that part of the process where the feedback loop happens, where we're actually able to see what's going on and also going back to make adjustments as necessary. And then the closing. So as we do round 1 of the work that we're going to do with this organization, we'll literally close it out and we will evaluate what we have done and then literally start that process all over again. Many people do this work. They just didn't realize there are people that have researched it. Now, this slide, just so that you know, may be hard for you to read because it's literally 3 years worth of activities that I have done beginning with year 1. So in year 1 and really year 2, I was understanding the organization and creating the plan. So of course we identified the organization, I met with our partner, and we also I reviewed the initial data that Dr. Ray provided to me. And also I did a little investigating on my own before we had our first meeting, because you always need to see what they may not tell you. In year 2, we continued this work and it began more so aligning the research in the field to the practice of what we wanted to change within his organization related to literacy professional development and also then creating that plan. And so when we go into year 3, this is when we would develop the plan. And I say we because it was a partnership, developing the implementation plan of what will happen, reviewing that plan, and then also getting feedback along the way with the process of the staff and the families to see those results. And so all of that together was the 3-year consultancy with PSF. Now, within this work that we do, anytime you're working with people, organizations, and or humans, there are some risk. And there are some things that, if I gained an extra 5 pounds, or maybe after Thanksgiving, this jacket will be a little tighter. Well, life happens. And as you will see highlighted with the black dots, local schools allow Prodigal Son Foundation to enter to run their program. So that's a partnership. Well, what happened in March 2020? Yes, exactly. So one of the risks as well was that the out of school program could actually close the building. And because of that, we were able to continue this work, but know that we wouldn't actually be able to test it out, which is okay, because whenever PSF comes back, they have a great plan on how they can implement literacy instruction and professional development within their organization. Now, as we're doing this work, we think about how do we make sure that the work is truly doing what it's supposed to do. And so ADDIE is actually a model that I learned when I was working on my master's degree at North Carolina Central University in educational technology, but we use instructional design to actually help us to facilitate the learning process. When you're doing professional development with people, you have to make sure that they're going to learn, but there's a process. And so the first part is analysis. That's doing action research, that's working with Dr. Ray, that's looking at his documents, et cetera. Designing. So actually putting together the professional development plan to introduce the skills to the staff. Development of that program and that professional development actually comes based off of those literacy best practices. And then implementation. Of course, during this stage, we were not able to implement it because there was a different shift within how PSF operated during the pandemic, but we had the plan on how we would implement, and then evaluation, making sure that we're checking in with staff based off of those best practices and their understanding, and then observing those literacy activities. So when we think about the research, now I will tell you all, phenomenological study is a word that I practice a lot because I like to say phonema. But nevertheless, in this initial research, what I did was I looked deep within the organization. And so I had interviews with Dr. Ray along the 3 years. Some of it was related to classwork that I was doing at Gardner Webb, and some of it was related to the actual project itself. I analyzed the after school literacy survey, which was a survey that was created for some earlier research and looking at literacy and after school programs. Also, PSF, they put out their own staff survey after their programs, and they also conducted parent surveys. And thankfully, Dr. Ray gave me access to everything I needed access to, except the passwords. And so content analysis of PSF documents. What that means is I actually looked at the documents and looked to see what themes emerged, meaning what was he doing a lot of, what was he not doing a lot of, and how could we make sure that he inserted what he wanted to related to his goals. And so the Denison Culture Survey, which is something that thousands of organizations have used, I conducted that survey with Dr. Ray alone to see his perception. To move this work further, we would involve his board, then we would involve the staff, and then also to the families, and see how they differed in opinions and use that to help the organization grow forward. That's where consulting goes in, which we were taught how to do very well. Bookmark that, Dr. Ray. So out of that work, parents wanted more academic focus with literacy. One parent specifically said, hey, what are my kids doing with reading? The staff, they actually lacked adequate training in literacy. That was one of the things that Dr. Ray initially talked about, and he was very open to doing and working with me on. He also works with professional development, but literacy was my thing. And so the president also welcomed organizational cultural change. Listen, that is one of the hardest things with organizational leaders, is them being willing to allow you to come in, use a magnifying glass, and actually give them recommendations. And what I appreciate about Dr. Ray is that from some of the recommendations, I was able to see a difference in some of the things, and I'll talk about that a little later. So when we think about the work that he has done and the work that I've done with him, I've learned that one, you have to be intentional with staff with literacy professional development. In the 21st century framework, especially in North Carolina, a part of their evaluation is, do you do literacy activities? But there's no specific saying, well, did they do more than reading? Did they do workshop, or did they focus on the big five, etc.? Sharing the literacy best practices with families. These 10 practices are easily shared with people, but we have to give it to them in bite size. And so because this literacy professional development with staff who are not educators will have taken place, we actually can share that work. And so then the 3 people working together, the organization, the staff, and the families, will help to eliminate that literacy gap. And then using social media to highlight the Prodigal Son Foundation's commitment to increasing literacy achievement. One of the things I loved about their mission and all of their documents is that through STEAM, science, technology, engineering, the arts, and mathematics, they wanted to make sure that literacy was a part of each one of those. And in my earlier work in Durham Public Schools, I was very fortunate to have the experience of writing curriculum that made us put science and literacy together along with math and all the other subjects that elementary teachers taught. One of the interesting things, and Dr. Ray actually had another colleague who worked with him on fundraising, because that was one of the aspects that he talked to me about. I will not say that I'm the best fundraiser, but I knew that also wasn't my passion. But what I did notice was that in his social media, I provided him information on what I saw, and then there was a change. Now, when we do this work in the academic world, we always want to add something. And so one of the first things that Dr. Edwards shared with me, and also our amazing professor, Dr. Balls, who was the co-founder of the DEOL program, they always say, how do you want to change the world? How do you want to change your organization? And so operating virtual literacy in out-of-school programs is something that has a very few amounts of research in. There are very few amounts of research on virtual literacy instruction as a whole, and that's also another area of interest of mine. Using two-way video coaching for out-of-school program staff. So I'm in Lansing, Michigan. Originally, I was in Boiling Springs, North Carolina. Then I moved back to Durham. And if we had some way to do two-way video, you know, the Secret Service, whenever they do this, where they're communicating with other people. And we can do that same thing. And I had an experience with live coaching, but that was actually within a classroom setting. And so there are technologies out there, and I would love to have some developed so that that could actually happen in out-of-school programs. And then curriculum development specifically for non-educators who teach literacy with kids. And I say teach because everyone is a teacher. Some people are trained, some people are skilled, and most people that work with kids in out-of-school programs are not. So these are a few of my references. And Dr. Lamb, I think I have 3 minutes left. I see. All right. So I have 3 minutes left. So I wanted to provide a personal reflection to let you know that this has been an interesting journey that started in 2013. And Terry Edwards actually was at the very beginning of that journey. Everything in life happens for a reason. I love to use the term family, friends plus family, because together you all make up the village. And in his due season, all things come together, which is where the community has come apart. And many of you are here today. And at his appointed time, the light will shine within you. And so that's the faith. Now, I'm not a numerologist, but number 17, which is today's date, is the card for the stars. I want to keep this PG. And so my first out-of-school program was in Double Oaks, and that's where I named my students stars, and later my second and third grade students together achieving remarkable success. Wishes do come true. My late grandmother, Marie, always spoke this over my life, and she prayed for all of us, and literally she needed knee pads to make sure that we, as her grandchildren, achieved our wishes and dreams. It also represents hope. Building Communities for Success is my nonprofit, and that was birthed out of this program, something that I was not hoping to start until the end, but it actually didn't happen that way. And I thank Dr. Hamilton for all of that personal development that we did. And Andrew Johnson, the 17th president of the United States, who was from Raleigh, North Carolina, the same state that I'm from. As you know, he became president during the assassination of President Lincoln. And there was this thing called Juneteenth, which freed the slaves. And my nonprofit, BCFS, was actually launched with the celebration of the arts And I too was willing to give my life on behalf of freeing communities from generational poverty. And so when we think about the number 17, it's a wake up call for all of us. It's a message to tell you to be more confident, to assess your purpose in life, and to take appropriate action. Thank you.
Very good, Donald. When you speak of Double Oaks, is that on Statesville Road in Charlotte? Is that the one
Yes,
we're
sir.
talking about?
Which the community was gentrified, and there are people there that are paying $25 a month to live inside of those $200,000 townhomes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a worthy community to be working in. I have a personal story on that one that I'll save for another day. You and I talk individually. We'll talk about Double Oaks. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to work through our format this morning. Let me share my screen. And I've been sitting here this morning clicking off the things on our list. And so I think you have hit all of these, the 9 deliverables for your final defense format. And I think you've answered how you've applied your coursework. You've referenced most of your courses this morning. As your methodologist, I'm pleased to see that you chose SINGAE, Social Systems, which of course is the outgrowth of Getzel's Google Social Systems model. I think it was an apt theoretical framework, phenomenology, an excellent qualitative methodology to use as well. So I have no issues with any of your methodology. It's great. I guess the first question then is which of the DEOL courses impacted you the most and why?
So our first initial course where we really learned and studied what organizational leadership is, and my second course in personal development and growth. Those 2 courses, the first course taught us how to be consultants. And I still have the notes where I literally look back and see consultant in large, bold steps, in large, bold words, because we learned the tools and the tricks of the trade in how to support organizations. And not a lot of people learn those. And we have some of the best who do consulting work for undisclosed amounts. In the second course, our personal leadership development course, I took a trip and a vacation during that course that was pre-planned before we had the course dates. But on that trip, I was able to reflect, but also too, that's also where in Vancouver, I conquered a fear of walking across a suspension bridge. Everyone was gone and I was the only one left. And so I had to take the plunge because I didn't want to get left behind. And what I learned in that course through all of the professional assessments that we took is that you really have to know who you are in order to help somebody else so that you take away your biases and also work on those strengths that you have and also the deficits as well.
Yeah. So
that's where the nonprofit was built.
Right. So I think that defines who you are as a leader. And so the final question from your presentation this morning is, as you know, our motto at Gardner Webb is Pro Deo et Humanitate, for God and humanity. We expect you to be a servant leader in all that you have done and all that you have learned. Speak to me for a moment this morning in conclusion about your vision, your view, your application of servant leadership.
Wow. So interesting enough, literally this week, one of the doctoral students at University of Michigan who was working with the program within the Boys and Girls Club, they asked me that. And they said, you're a servant leader. They haven't interacted with me much, but there's one thing that I've always learned about myself is that I am a helper without wanting anything in return. I started off with worship because everything that I do comes from up above and it gives me the strength to move forward. And so as a servant leader, it is truly about what you can gift of yourself and give to others. Even with the nonprofit creation, I don't need any dollars from anyone to operate except for the Zoom account. That's $100 and something. But I'm able to use what I know and what I've learned to help others without a charge. And so doing the work of Maxwell, as he said, gift your services. And so I did that. And because of that gifting, others have gifted back to me my actual professional rate. Because I was a blessing to those 10 organizations and or people. And that's why servant leadership is literally something that it's just the fabric of my life.
Excellent. And I think you have defined what Maxwell calls the law of legacy. That you have touched these organizations and left part of yourself behind. And that's wonderful. Excellent job this morning, Donald. Dr. Ray, thank you for being with us today, but most of all, thank you and the Prodigal Son Foundation for hosting Donald and being a partner with Donald and Gardner Webb. We from Gardner Webb, thank you for that partnership. I have two questions for you this morning. The first is if you could share with us how Donald has impacted your organization.
So thank you. Can you hear me?
But we can. Thank you.
Okay, I have my earbuds. So thank you for allowing me to be here this morning. Donald and the work and the one thing that I always say about Donald does the work. That's the one person I know does the work. And so being able to just continue to push from an executive position, perception that he pushed on evaluation and important of evaluation. And we know how important evaluation is because it gives us data. We're just another person with an opinion if we do not have the evaluation and the data that is needed. And so I think the work that he was able to just ask questions to kind of get us to reflect. I think he said something about his reflections, but to reflect on what was working and what was not working. And so that was definitely helpful as we've moved through COVID-19. This has been a weird space here in Charlotte, but his perseverance on making sure that I was doing what I was supposed to be doing on the work that he was doing. So I think that was great. And we were able to see a lot of things and learn a lot of things, and kind of the conversation that we had, they were great, that we were able to reflect on those things. And so, again, I go back to that statement that, we're just another person with an opinion without that data. And so that data gives us opportunity to reflect on the parents, the students that we serve, the community that we serve, kind of got us where we are right now, that we able to survive COVID-19, and that we're in a great place right now at our new location.
That's wonderful. Dr. Ray, is there any reason that you can think of that Donald should not be awarded his doctoral degree from Gardner Webb University today?
Nothing curriculum wise. I will joke, and I know this is not always a joking matter, but he is of the other fraternity. So I say that, but no, he has done the work, and no, I think he deserves all the work that he's done.
Thank you. At this point, I will open up the floor for any questions that anybody has for Donald about his consultancy, about his project, or any questions for Dr. Ray. Hearing none, we'll move on. We'll move into the final phase here. Donald, to whom much is given, much is required. The DEOL program asks you to have a mind for learning, a heart for serving, and bless you and your family. Your charge is that you will be the only ambassador of Gardner Webb that some people ever come in contact with. And so you have a duty and responsibility to live your life as a doctor with discipline inquiry, as Dr. Ray said, to not just have an opinion, but to know, to collect the data, to be responsible in how you handle that information, and ethical. And so this morning, it is my great pleasure to introduce to you the latest minute doctor from Gardner-Webb University, Dr. Donald Barringer. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
I'll open up the floor to Donald for comments, and anybody that would like to say a word of congratulations to Donald.
So I'm actually going to read something to you all that thank you all for being here, so that you all will know how this degree was not about me in this journey. And so first, I must give honor to God, my mother, Lily, my dad, Donald, my grandparents, Marie, JW, John Henry, and Mary, my sister, Tamika, my brother, Shemaine, my nephew, Roderick, my nieces, Kiana and Jasmine, and my great niece, Chloe. These names must be included because I'm a direct reflection of the influence and impact they've had over my whole life. So this journey before the degree was all made possible because of them. And as a first generation college student who didn't even know what a doctoral degree was, it's important to channel the spirit of Sankofa and not forget where you came from by looking back to the past, but you also must look forward to not repeat the horrible lessons of the past. So thank you all so much. If you want to read more, it'll be uploaded in digital commons a little bit later.
Very good. Dr. Hamilton, a word for Donald.
Donald, I just want to say congratulations. And I know this has been a journey, as it is for everybody, but so well deserved with the work that you put in. So glad that, thank you for choosing Gardner-Webb. I know our relationship started, I don't know how many people here know, started as Donald was the recruiter for this program. And he was so passionate about it, believing in it. We talked a lot. And it was interesting. I remember when he said to me one day, I would love to be in this program. And I said, well, you should do it. You obviously have some natural abilities of persuasion and inspiration. And then you got in the program. So Donald hasn't only enriched the program by his own presence in it, but also by others that he's influenced. And for that, we're grateful, because again, that's another example of you leaving something better than you found it. And we thank you for that. So congratulations, Donald.
I echo those comments. As we come to the close today, our prayer this week, as we are in our final defenses, are to remind us all of our responsibilities to God and humanity. And so our prayer today as we close is, let me serve you, from St. Teresa of Avila. So if you'll pray with me this morning. Govern everything by your wisdom, O Lord, so that my soul may always be serving you in the way that you will and not as I choose. Let me die to myself so that I may serve you. Let me live to you who are life itself. Amen. Congratulations again, Dr. Barringer. Please remember to follow through with digital commons in the 753 shell that you're in this semester. The digital commons forms are in there. One's a Word document, one's a PDF, whichever is most useful for you. Go ahead and make sure you fill that out. That'll be your last thing to do. We'll be in touch. Everybody, thank you for joining us today. Again, congratulations, Dr. Donald. We'll be talking soon. Everybody have a good day. Thank you.
Thank y'all.